Welcome back to Growing OT, the podcast that's developed and produced by the Society of Alberta Occupational Therapists. I'm your host, Clare O'Byrne, and I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest to you. Alexandra Dunn is a trauma-informed integrative counsellor, life coach, equine facilitator, and reflexologist with a passion for supporting individuals in achieving holistic wellness and empowerment. With 25 years of experience, her approach is rooted in the belief that healing begins with feeling truly seen and supported. She blends traditional wisdom with integrative wellness practices, supporting clients in restoring balance, building resilience, and discovering the strength that's already within them. Welcome to Growing OT, Alexandra Dunn.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet you.
So, Alex, to start off, I'm really eager to hear more about your really varied experience and skills, and also how you came into this type of work in the first place.
Okay, so there's two answers. So I'll go back to the very, very beginning. Obviously, I grew up in London, in the UK. I've been here for 16 years. And my dad was a consultant psychiatrist in London. And he opened a day hospital where he took the bars off the windows and opened the doors so the patients could walk around, and they did play therapy and art therapy. In fact, I realized today that I've got one of the clay pots in the lounge that one of the patients made. And yeah,
Wow.
It's incredible pot. Yeah. And drama therapy. So, and I remember memories when I was 4 years old with my sister going to the hospital and handing out Christmas presents and things. So it was just a part of my life back then. And then, so that was that. So it just part of my life. And then my dad helped set up the Alzheimer's Society way back then. And he was one of the founding members. And then we had lots of the caring groups at our house. So I used to help Dad with that and sit in some of the meetings. And I was a teenager, and it was fascinating hearing some of the stories from the carers and things that were said and my dad's response. And I remember just watching my dad. And it was just an incredible man, just watching him, holding space for people. And some of the stories, him also trying not to laugh, be professional, and not leave the room like I did with some of the stories, because there's humor. There's humor in things as well. You know, you need to sometimes find the humor every day, but also sometimes in those dark places, you find the humor, if that makes sense. So there was lots of tears, lots of love, and lots of laughter in these groups. So I used to watch him. And my mum was amazing. She always made these amazing teas for everybody. So that's that side of things. And then I had a really tough time at school. So when I was a teenager, who doesn't really? So mum discovered horses for me. And that's how I got into the horse aspect of this. So counselling has always been on my radar. And then the horse element as well. And it just went from there. And I combine the two. One of my modalities, I combine the two. So that's how I got into that part of things. Then how I got into more the passion of using the trauma-informed lens, the guiding principles of trauma-informed lens. It was because I had a significant situation, life-threatening significant situation in a visit when I was with a family that was completely unexpected. Didn't even see it coming. It was so sudden, which it took about 26 minutes. It resulted in police cars and an ambulance. And I remember I was sitting in the ambulance, not quite sure why. It was just all a bit of a blur, but also very clear. So very fragmented memories. And I've lost 11 minutes of that 26. And then a lot happened after that. And I realized that I had a choice. And I thought, okay, this can consume me and become my life. Or I can make a choice and teach others and embody the guiding principles and embody what it's like. Because I call it a privileged position to be on both sides. I was on the side, used to be on the side where I was sitting near the door as a professional. And then suddenly I wasn't. I was the other side of the room. You're away from the door. And I was the client. and I was in the system. So it taught me so much about being on the other side, being away from the door, and being in a system, WC system and LifeMark. And the situation that happened to me was, it was an awful, awful incident, really awful incident. But the post-traumatic stress happened because I wasn't given a voice afterwards. So it's something happened to me, but then more happened inside of me, like Gabor Mate always says, and other people say, it's what trauma is, what happens inside of you. I wasn't allowed to speak about it. And I worked in a trauma-informed environment where I was full of professionals and social workers and psychologists, but I wasn't allowed to speak about it. So that's when the post-traumatic stress came in, because I didn't have a voice and I had to push it down. So then my belief system changed, thinking something's wrong with me. And then my lens of the world changed into, says, there's something wrong with the world, there's something wrong with me, because you see things as you are. So there was something intrinsically wrong with me because I was making a big deal out of this incident, which apparently was nothing because I wasn't allowed to talk about it. So it steamrolled into that. And then I was up for disciplinary because I was in functional freeze. And so I couldn't do my job. So, and then I went to HR just because I was like, I don't quite know what's going on. And they said, what's happened to you? The 11 years you've worked here, you've never, ever been on our radar. And everyone's always on our radar. You never have been. And they said, and they're the only people, and this is about 10, 11 months after the incident, 10 months, that she was the only person who actually said to me, what's happened? And then the floodgates opened and she said, okay, we're going to connect with WCB, you're going to go off sick. And then things started to shift. Yeah, but that was a long journey. So that's how I got into what I'm doing now.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Alex. I appreciate your sort of openness with telling all of our listeners that story, sharing that experience. And I just really appreciate it. And obviously, there is so much that we can now talk about in this conversation. I'm sure there's more than we'll end up having time to talk about.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's so many other things I want to ask you through what you've said. So firstly, I actually want to ask you about, you mentioned being in like a functional freeze. So can you give us a bit more information about that for anyone who isn't quite sure what exactly that would seem like or look like?
Okay, I was getting up, going through my day because I was still working, just about going through my day, literally in survival mode, going to home visits, going to people's houses, doing all my paperwork, which had to be done really, really, really well, all the paperwork, because you might get subpoenaed with your paperwork. So it was a high-level job of getting everything completely right. So I was going through the day, and then I got home, and I was like, I survived the day. I was literally in survival mode. I was waiting for something significant, and I was waiting for that. So what that looked like was me being on the outside, me being really smiley, trying to befriend everybody, asking everybody, how are you? What do you need? How can I help you? What do you need? Asking about their day, asking about their weekend, and colleagues as well as home visit clients as well. And looking back on it, I think it was because I was desperate for somebody to say, and how are you? So we call it the fawn response. So I basically went into the fawn response, but not knowing I was in the fawn response and not knowing I was in functional freeze. But also it's weird because functional freeze is more like the hyper-arousal, but then I was also hyper-arousal because on a continuum, if you think the window of tolerance, because I was waiting for something to happen. So I was seesawing between the both, if that makes sense. But I was exhausted. I was so exhausted. I came home at the end of every night and I literally just collapsed and thinking, oh my gosh, I survived the day. And then I woke up and I did it all again. And then I survived the day. And I woke up and I did it all again. And that went on for 10 months.
And so you mentioned, well, it sounds like turning point in that was literally the moment somebody actually stopped to ask you,
What happened?
what's going on, what's happened, how are you? And that sense of creating and holding some space for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was one of the turning points. And they didn't even know about the incident.
Right.
So when I told them about the incident, they're like, well, when did this happen? We didn't know about this. So that was a whole big thing. So she sent me home. She was an amazing lady. She sent me home. She said, put your pajamas on. Keep them on for at least 2 weeks. Obviously get changed, wash your pajamas and watch Netflix. Literally, I don't want you to do anything. I'm not even going to contact you for 2 weeks because I don't want you to answer the phone. Just do nothing. Just be for 2 weeks. And after that, after the 2 weeks, then I heard back from WCB and she checked in with me. Yeah. So, and then I was accepted into the LifeMark program, an amazing program in the north of Calgary, which was the psychological injury program. So it should have been, I think, an 11-week program. I was there for 13 months because it was really significant. The impact of not being heard after. So I saw the most amazing psychologist for, I think it was 1 or 2 sessions a week. And I saw an occupational therapist. And then I saw a physio. The physio wasn't from LifeMark. They were monitoring my physio, but the physio was closer to home. And there were some weeks I had, so this is me being on medical leave. There were some weeks I had 13 appointments.
Wow.
I know. Yeah.
That is so, it's so
It was
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. But like I said, it gave me a different lens to see what it's like being on the other side and what it's like being in the system and what it's like being so grateful for these amazing, all women actually, these amazing women who had my back and were trying to help me heal from this, but also not really having a choice because I was in the system. So if I had said no to anything because I was in WCB, then I might be cut off. If I just need a month's break with nothing, you can't do that. You have to do the programming. You have to be in the system. So it taught me a lot about navigating the system and being in the system and having a lot of your choice taken away from you.
And you mentioned that the choice and not having the choice to not show up. Did you ever feel like you didn't want to go to the week that you had 13 appointments? Did you wish you could cancel some of them?
Yeah. In the beginning, I had a taxi because I was so in fight and flight. And where it was way up in the north of Calgary, which is where my office used to be. So I had to pass the road. So I couldn't do that. So then I got a taxi for a while. So that helped. But yeah, so it was exhausting. So I was exhausted anyway. And then it's not like I was on sick leave and could just lie around all day. It was very, very intense.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful. It's not that I'm not grateful. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. So you mentioned that you actually experienced OT, and this podcast, largely the listeners will be in the occupational therapy community.
Yeah.
Not all OTs, but I would love to know a little bit about, can you remember what was meaningful to you, particularly about that therapeutic relationship with your occupational therapist?
It's interesting, and I won't mention any names, but she was amazing. She was absolutely incredible. The whole team were amazing. And the thing is that they worked individually, but they worked as a team. They all collaborated together. And I felt that she just wasn't working by herself. It was, they were collaborating together for my success and working on my strengths. So that was incredible. I knew I was a part of it. So that was really I felt I was being held and supported by a team because I was. But it's strange because I was in this psychological injury program for 13 months. I remember seeing her 4 times. And I know I saw her a lot more than that. And it's nothing to do with her. She was amazing. It's to do with me being in fight and flight and being in the amygdala and the back part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain. I just wasn't accessing my prefrontal cortex at all. I was literally just going through the motions. But the times I really do remember seeing her was, I just remember that she noticed me. And yes, she had an agenda. Of course she has an agenda for my healing. Of course there was an agenda. Otherwise I'd still be there. And this is years ago, several years ago. But it never really felt like with her. She gave me as much space as possible. I remember 2 sessions I remember with her in the office space, and then the other 2 sessions we were out and about, trying to walk past where the incident happened. But I know I'd met her a lot more than that. And I remember there was one time when I had a significant panic attack. I suddenly wasn't in the room with her anymore. I was literally, even my shoes, the carpet, when I was looking down, I just remember everything changed. It's really weird to remember a flashback you had. It's very strange, but I remember it. And she managed that really, really well, because it was probably quite scary for her as well to see suddenly I wasn't there anymore. Literally wasn't in the room anymore. And she was trying to talk to me, and it was as if I was underwater. But she got me back. However she did it, she got me back into the room again. And I remember when we were out and about in the community, she could see it was starting again. She must have been able to see it was starting again, because she was like asking me to look at the trees. And what do I notice about the trees? How many birds can I see? So she was trying to bring me back into the present moment. So that there must have been something she noticed in me that I was about to have another panic attack. So she got in there and helped me be in the present moment.
Like you said, she noticed you.
She noticed. Yeah, she noticed. I wasn't, and I'm not saying people are, but at all, but the way I felt really seen and nurtured. And that is so important, especially when you don't have a choice. If that makes sense.
Yes,
she
of
made
course.
everything, and the psychologist as well. They made the whole experience quite incredible. Yeah.
So, as a result of obviously that huge personal experience, do you feel like now that your understanding of trauma, because it has changed how maybe you view it, how has it actually changed, and how did it impact how you now practice yourself when you're with clients? Like, how has it changed how you practice?
It's changed my whole life because although I've gone through my trauma and my experience, you and I could have witnessed and been involved in exactly the same situation at exactly the same time, stood next to each other, but you and I would react differently. So I never ever like to presume that, oh, I know how you feel, because I don't. Everybody is different. It's just I have my own level of understanding and being on both sides of it. So it was then that I really embodied the 6 guiding principles, the framework, and it's like a lens I not only work through, but it's how I live my life. And through that lens, it's really helped me become a lot slower, because I'd go, because I had something to prove to everybody for some reason. So I've become a lot more, not so much slower, but a lot more present. And I give myself lots of breaks, because if I'm counseling somebody or coaching somebody about slowing down in life, I need to do that as well. So it's, the expression, you practice what you preach. I try to as much as I can. And allowing space for what is. Allowing space without the work I do, because I'm self-employed now. There's no agenda apart from supporting the client, the participant, meeting them where they're at, but not leaving them there. That's my agenda. So
I love that you mentioned meeting them where they're at. And I think in occupational therapy, we also try to really remember that whoever the kind of clients that we're working with, whatever setting, about meeting our patients, our clients, the families, just exactly where they are in that moment.
And not leaving them there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the psychologist I saw, absolutely incredible. And I do lots of EMDR with her. But best therapy I had 4 legs and a tail. And was called Banana Cream. He was a horse. And I had my dog Snowy as well, but Banana Cream, because I do the equine therapy, whenever I went up there, when I was going through all of this, just to be with the horses, because I couldn't see clients when I was going through this, because I wouldn't have been my best self at all, and it would have been giving them not great service. So I used to go up there and visit Banana Cream, and no matter how I was, no matter what state I was in, this horse used to just come and stand by me no matter what, no matter how I was feeling that day, and no agenda, absolutely nothing, just stood by me, and I could be exactly who I needed to be in that moment, with no judgment, no shame, no guilt, none of the heavy stuff. I could just literally sob my heart out, or have a bit of a laugh, or just think, just process, or just be in the moment. And this horse just let me do that. And then Snowy, my dog, who unfortunately passed last year, I got to the point that I didn't want to leave the house, because unless it was going to my appointments via taxi, because the world was a scary place, really, really scary, unexpected things happen. So I didn't really want to leave the house. So my husband was, okay, we're getting a dog because you need to leave the house and you'll have to walk the dog. So we got Snowy, and Snowy used to come up to the horses as well. So, but we lost her unexpectedly last year. And I just really believe that if you believe this, that she came into my life when I really, really needed her. And I've been on an even keel, doing pretty well, that she's, I've done my job.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
I want to ask you more about the equine facilitated therapy, because I know, like you said, that is a huge part of what you do. And I don't know much about it, and I'm sure many of the listeners may not be as familiar too. So can you tell us a bit about what actually is that? What does it mean? What does it look like typically?
Yeah. And before I just do that, I just want to also, the psychologist and OT that was helping me, they were really interested, and they actually came out to see Banana Cream and the herd.
I love that name, by the way,
Banana Cream. I know. So it was wonderful. They actually came out and I had a session with them there. But so the thing about horses and other animals, but I'll just talk to horses, is that so often we can smile, but we're not feeling the smile inside. It's a fake smile that maybe not reach our eyes, or it's just a smile that we perceive to the world. Horses see that smile and they're like, I don't believe that smile. And they pick up on the energy inside. From joy to being present to all the big heavy stuff, they pick up on that, and they reflect. If sometimes I'm holding, or a participant is holding a lot of the heavy stuff in their stomach, or physical pain, emotions or physical pain, they might nudge that part of the body. Or if there's certain horses come up for certain things. So there was a horse in my other practice I used to be at that always used to come up and stand behind people if people needed somebody to have their back. That horse always came up for that. And other horses come up for different things, because horses pick up, horses reflect, and horses have got a much bigger heart than ours and a slower heart rate. So just being around horses co-regulation at its finest. They help us to co-regulate and slow our heart rate down and become present. And horses are in the present pretty much all the time. And they shake things off if they do pick up on our energy. You see them processing our energy by licking and chewing. And that's them coming back down into the parasympathetic. And then they can yawn to release. And then if still they're holding on to our energy and holding on to things, they have a shake or a roll and a shake. And it's fascinating if they're still, especially youngsters, if the younger horses are still, like, gives a really heavy session, then they might go up to an older horse and touch noses to transfer the energy.
Oh,
so it's fascinating.
Goodness.
I know. It's fascinating.
This is absolutely fascinating, and such a lovely medium through which to help with that healing process.
Yeah.
And this is something that you trained in the UK, but also in Canada. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yes, it was about 20 years ago. This amazing woman from Serona Therapeutic Horsemanship she was setting up, or she had set up, but it was growing and growing and growing. But I started with her really early on, and there wasn't really any formal training, but she taught me, she'd been doing it for years, she taught me everything that I knew because I worked alongside her, and she was I was a horse handler, and she just taught me everything that I know. And then I did a qualification when I moved to Canada. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, but yeah, she just taught me everything.
And so
Incredible.
now it is part of the offerings that you provide to clients if they're interested in it, or if you maybe suggest it. Is that right?
It's because I've got a counselling space,
Mm-hmm.
and some people, they don't want to sit opposite each other and talk and talk. They just want to be in a field, grooming a horse, or just leaning on a fence or a gate, watching the horses. And some sessions I have with the herd are lots and lots and lots of talking, not with me, but with the participant. And other sessions are very, very silent and very, very quiet. I had one session, and there was a young gentleman came for a session, and I'd seen him a couple of times, and we were stood in the field, and we'd done I always do some breathing and grounding first, but again, that's an invitation, because some people, they're not ready for that because it's not safe being in their bodies. So I'm very aware of that as well, the trauma-informed lens. It's not safe. They're holding on, and it's their protection. Just being in the head, they don't want to be in their bodies. They don't want to feel, because they need to get through every day. And then over time, you see that soften. So this one gentleman, he came, and we'd done the grounding and the breathing, and I was stood behind him so he doesn't just sees the countryside and the horses. And this one horse stepped up and stood in front of him, not grazing or anything, for 45 minutes, and not a word was said. And then he naturally shifted, and I'm like, how are you doing? How is that? And he was almost in tears. He said that's the most impactful, empowering session he's ever had in his life, and not a word was said. Just a horse stood by him holding space.
Wow. That says so much, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because he
About that
could
power.
just be. He said that he's got an ADHD brain, his words, and he has to fill up every single gap in his life. He can't be still. And he was still for 45 minutes.
Wow. When I was introducing you at the beginning, I mentioned in the bio that you feel that healing begins with being truly seen and supported. Can you speak a little bit more about that, the aspect of the power, I suppose, about being truly seen and supported, and how that can be facilitated?
Yeah. It is so unbelievably powerful, because I know that after the incident, if somebody, and it could have been anybody, it could have been absolutely anybody, a stranger on the street, anybody. You don't have to have all these long qualifications after your name. If somebody had have seen me, looked at me, really looked at me, not just glanced, and said, how are you doing? Are you okay? Or what's happened? I've seen a shift. What's happened? And if I'd have gone into my story, then it's okay. Let's find you some support. Let's find you. Are you seeing a counselor? Are you seeing a psychologist? Do you have support? So it's not being trauma informed. Isn't about going to the trauma and doing that journey. It's about holding space for that without an agenda or fixing or the judgment. Nothing like that. It's just about holding space for that without going. It doesn't mean to say you're a trauma therapist and you delve into the trauma. It's not. It's just having a lens that you're aware that everyone's got a story, and holding space for that without asking questions. Oh, tell me all about it. It's not about that. I never asked that. Tell me all about it. It's not that. It's holding space for that. And thank you so much for trusting me to share that with me. Thank you so much. And wherever that takes you, if, like I said, how would it be if we did some resourcing together because of empowerment and voice and choice, and we can look at some psychologists or some therapy that might help support you, things like that. Yeah, but it's not about going to the trauma. So as OTs, and you all do such incredible, amazing work. So thank you all for all the work that you do. It's just seeing somebody and how are you doing? How's your day going? Or even breaking it down even more, it's like, how's your journey here today? Or how's your morning been? Because instead of, otherwise it's too broad. So how's your morning been this morning? Things like that. And even bringing it back down into the day, or what did you have for your lunch today? Because then that brings it back into the here and now and thinking about just today. You know, because trying to get my words right. It is, for me, I wasn't in the present moment at all. I was in survival mode for such a long time. My chest hurt. I was having physical symptoms. I literally was worried about my heart. And I remember telling my OT and psychologist, I think I'm doing damage to my heart, because my heart hurt so much and my heart rate was so fast for months and months and months. And you know, that big band around your chest, this big band of, like, I was being compressed around my chest. So I was having physical symptoms as well. So it's just noticing that. I'm my psychologist and my OT, sometimes my leg used to, because I couldn't sit still. So sometimes my leg was twitching. I'm doing it as if you can see my leg twitching. So,
I'm imagining it.
I know. So, you know, often my leg was twitching, and I'm noticing that your leg's twitching. What do you need right now? And sometimes in the psychology sessions, I need to get out. Okay, let's go for a walk. Because it's all very well being mindful and intentional, but if you've got this almost vibration that I had inside me, you need to get it out before you can, like, let's do some belly breathing, because belly breathing isn't going to get this energy that was in my body out. Having said that, when my heart rate, because remember my heart rate was so fast and so escalated so much of the time, because panic, alert, the world is a very scary, dangerous place, unexpected things happen, you can die. That was going on the whole time. Running was a good escape from, well, sprinting, I was a sprinter, because running hurts. Sprinting, you do it for a short amount of time.
And it's
but
over.
I couldn't, yeah, I know, yeah. But I couldn't do anything that got me out of breath, because I was very out of breath for the 26 minutes. So when I was out of breath, because I was on fight and flight, my hippocampus went to my amygdala, danger. So it took me a long time to be able to do any working out and anything to escalate my heart. So it was a really tricky situation that my psychologist and OT handled brilliantly, that they knew I had all this energy inside me, but they also knew that they had to be very careful how to get it out of me, because they didn't want me to suddenly go into a complete panic meltdown, thinking my heart rate is really escalated. There's more with the hippocampus, memories of that. And do you see what I mean, where I'm going? So being aware of things like that yes, you need to get that out of the body, but really mindfully and really, really carefully.
And with such intention. So fascinating about the brain and the body and the connection, and I guess how valuable and important it is to have a professional clinician, or whoever it is, person who can really see that and be in tune with what is going on. And like you say, noticing those subtleties or nuances. I'm thinking about, again, in the OT community, the central aspect of what we do, no matter what area we work in, is we care about facilitating meaningful participation. And you talked about holding space and the value of that. And sometimes it can look like not even actually doing anything. And I'm thinking, I think most OTs understand the value of holding space, but we might also sometimes have trouble really leaning into that, because depending on the way we work and who we work with, there might be a perceived pressure to do something more tangible, or do lots of little tangible things that feels like we are having more of an impact. I suppose my question around that is, what do you think, because you have this lived experience, you also have the experience helping people in that situation. What do you think people like in the OT community could feel more confident or comfortable or maybe even brave in really valuing and pausing and holding that space for our clients?
I think getting out of your head and trusting your gut. Really trusting your gut, because I know as OTs, of course you've got an agenda. Of course you have. You might have a set program to do. You might be with WC, with LifeMark. So of course you do, but also trusting your gut. Because if you trust your gut and really notice the breathing, the body language, how that clients, patients are like walking in, if their shoulders are hunched, if they're like leaning forward, or if they're just notice the tension in their jaw. If you just notice, and even if you took a couple of minutes, 5 minutes before your session, just to do some co-regulation together, or have some strategies like a fidget toy or an ice pack in a freezer to put on the back of the person's neck. And always do it as well, whatever the person does. So have 2 ice packs. So yeah, I just think I'll do it as well. So you're doing it as well. And or do some breathing, and you'll get to learn the client, the patient, participant, as to what works for them. Have a sour candy, have some chewing gum, have a rocking chair, have a weighted blanket. I know it's all poppy money, but anything like that that's self-soothing. Do some bilateral stimulation, figure out what works, and ask them, okay, what's worked for you in the past? What are your strengths? What's worked for you in the past when you're feeling agitated or overwhelmed? I remember my psychologist, because I joke a lot, and sometimes it hides how I'm really feeling. So my psychologist said to me once, okay, so how will I know, because you're always smiling, you're making jokes, how will I know when you're not doing okay? And I said, because I won't be making any jokes anymore. So finding out, how will I know when you're not doing okay?
That's
Things
wonderful.
like that.
I love how practical some of those things are. You know, they are actually quite tangible things that you can offer or be aware of or look for.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about, you mentioned co-regulation, which is something that OTs, we are familiar with that, and it's important to us too. So what do you feel like you were mentioning there about when a therapist is with a client, or maybe it's a parent or a family member or a caregiver, whoever it is, how can we be taking care of ourselves too? Because all of us, we may not have had the trauma that you have experienced, but everybody has
We all
got
have a
something
story.
going on in their life that is
We all have a
impacting
story.
how they feel in any given moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, somebody, an OT or somebody, or I might be on my way to see a client and there's roadworks and I'm running late, or I've had a big argument with my husband, or my dog's been sick all over the carpet just before I'm about to leave the house, or I've spilt all my tea down my top, these small things that can be big things. And then we've got so it's about taking some time just to, I know it sounds really silly, but just to even wiggle your toes and really bring yourself back down and notice what you feel under your feet, whether it's the floorboards, the carpet, your socks, the shoes, whatever it is. Really notice and do some of those belly breaths, and even drop your tongue down to the bottom of your mouth and open your jaw and just be. And if you need to shake it out, shake it out. If you need some movement, whatever's needed. If you need to do the movement and then do some grounding, just notice and listen to your body. Just listen. And okay, so I have a question for you and everybody listening. Okay.
Yes.
So, because it's all about being kind to ourselves. So imagine you have a list, and on that list are people that you would do anything for unconditionally, or without breaking the law. Let's put that in there. Anything you do for them unconditionally because you love them to pieces. Okay. Don't have to say the names, and it doesn't have to be top, middle, or bottom. Do you have a list in your head? Yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Where are you?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh
Are you on the list?
I did.
That's okay.
I
So many of us aren't
even
on our list. No. I think.
I was thinking of other people. I
Yeah,
never even thought of
that's
that.
so that's to answer your question, that's what you can do for yourself. And in doing that, then other things will follow, like helping to regulate yourself, helping to listen to body. Okay, do I need movement? Do I need a ground? What do I need? And then if you start treating yourself with the love and kindness and compassion that we give to others, then actually clients are going to notice that. They're going to pick up on that energy. So
Wow.
put yourself on your list.
I'm writing it down. Wow, that's really powerful. Thank you. I want to ask you about there's a few things, I suppose. One is what keeps you doing this work in particular? And then I guess the second question is, because maybe they're linked, what what's exciting you right now in the work that you're doing? Or what are you excited about that will be coming up as such in the work that you are doing?
Okay. So the first question, I can't imagine doing anything else. I literally, it's intrinsically who I am. I can't, obviously, I'm a wife and a mum and a grandmother. I know, nearly 2 years old. She's amazing. I can't imagine doing anything else, actually, because I love it. I absolutely love what I do. So I can't imagine doing anything else. And the second question, so when I was going through everything I was going through, I had a choice, like I said. I had a choice. And there was, I think there was something huge that happened that I was like, okay, this is quite huge. And this isn't right, what I did. It was a huge, big reaction. I broke the door down to get in the house. Literally broke the door down. Huge, big reaction. Because in my head, there was a saber-toothed tiger behind me. So I literally broke the door down to get in the house. So I was like, oh, okay, this is quite a big reaction. So I thought, I have a choice. And I thought, like I said earlier, and my choice was to learn from this. What am I taking away from this experience? So I developed training around this, trauma-informed training. And I did it last year. I presented it last year for equine facilitators, which was amazing. So, and it took me almost just under a year to develop. And it's not so much the what, it's the how we do what we do with a trauma-informed lens. And I'm also writing a book about
Wonderful.
listening to the messages of the universe, that listening to the messages and just listening and treating yourself like our own best friend and the trauma and what I learned from it. So I've done that, but I've put it aside for 2 months because I was working on that every day for such a long time, for hours on end every evening. So I'm putting aside for a couple of months and then I'm going to look at it again and read it page by page because I need a bit of a break from it, because when you've been working on something so long, you don't see any mistakes or errors or what could be shifted. So I've put that to one side for a couple of months and I'll come back to it.
Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
definitely exciting.
Yeah.
And who is the ideal reader of your book going to be?
I think anybody. It's a journal and a self-help, and there's some humor and there's some strategies and there's things that worked for me and there's some things that didn't work for me at all. And so it can literally be, I think, for anybody, actually. Yeah. So it's a bit broad. Not children.
Right.
I don't think children.
Okay. That's a good warning.
Yeah.
You know what? It's been so, I mean, I said it earlier, I'm going to keep saying this word, but it's been so fascinating listening to you, Alex. And I really want to say thank you
And thank
for
you.
sharing that. It's something really personal, that story about your lived experience and how it's changed you, how it's impacted the way you work with clients yourself, how it's changed your life. And like you said, thank you for trusting me and now the listeners with that aspect of your story. And it really is so powerful listening to somebody who has this professional knowledge and wisdom and experience, but also has absolutely been on the other side and having that and embodying what that also means in terms of what a real client's experience is. And obviously it's not the same for everybody, but the insight.
Dark.
The insight.
Very dark places you go to. Yeah.
And that insight that you have, I'm sure, is changing people's lives now because you've had that experience. And it's so, as an occupational therapist, and obviously many of our listeners are in the OT community, what you talk about in terms of holding space and being in tune with our clients, it very much aligns with the therapeutic use of self is what most of the OTs will think about. And even if we're not directly working with people who we know have gone through trauma and it's not our typical everyday, I think that what you have talked about now is relevant for all therapists in all settings, because actually even the power of holding space and something as simple as really looking at someone and asking, how are you? How are you doing? Or something where you're stopping and it's, you know, the agenda, you're letting it go a little bit and you're really asking, how are you?
And you're also, you're able to hold space for the answer.
Wow. Thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you and the work you do and learn from you or work with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's my name. So Alexandra Dunn Wellness. So you can see me on Instagram or Facebook. And my website is alexandradunnwellness.com.
Wonderful. And that will also be added to the show notes in today's episodes. I just want to say thank you so much again for talking. I wish we had another 2 hours. I think there's a lot more.
Love to chat, yeah.
A lot more extremely
Next installment.
relevant. Yes. Maybe we can have a part 2. But thanks again. It was a privilege listening. Yeah, thank you so much.
And again, thank you for all you do as OTs. Thank you.
Alexandra Dunn will be facilitating an online workshop with SAOT on November 27th and 28th, entitled The 6 Guiding Principles of Trauma-Informed Practice, From Understanding to Embodied Practical Application. For more information and the registration details, please visit the SAOT website, www.saot.ca, on the workshop, and the workshop link is also included in the show notes. Thank you for listening and see you next time.